The emergency alarms echoed through the massive halls of the Galactic Council chambers on Nexus Prime. Ambassador Zeth Kara rushed through the corridors, her 6 legs clicking against the polished floor. In her forearms, she carried data tablets that glowed with urgent red warnings. The information they contained would shake the entire galaxy. The council chamber was already packed when she arrived. Representatives from hundreds of worlds sat in their designated sections, their various forms of communication creating a low buzz of worry and confusion. The air recyclers worked overtime to accommodate the different atmospheric needs of so many species. Zeth Kara climbed to the central speaking platform. Her species, the Veloxians, were known for their calm nature and careful diplomatic approach. But today her voice shook as she began to speak. "Fellow council members," she said, her words translated instantly into hundreds of languages. "We have a situation that requires immediate attention. 3 hours ago, our deep space monitors detected an unknown vessel approaching the Cathara system." A wave of shocked silence swept through the chamber. Every species in the galaxy knew about the Cathara system. It was the most dangerous quarantine zone in known space. The planet was home to creatures so violent and savage that the Council had banned all contact over 200 years ago. Zeth Kara activated the main display screen. The image showed a massive ship moving through space. It was unlike anything the Council had seen before. The vessel was long and angular, painted in dark colors that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Strange weapons jutted from its hull like the spines of some deep space predator. "The ship identifies itself as the HSS Prometheus," Zeth Kara continued. "It belongs to a species calling themselves humans. They come from a world they call Earth, located in what we know as Sector 7G. Councillor Vex Talon, a tall being with crystalline skin, stood up in his section. "Ambassador, Sector 7G is classified as uninhabitable. The gravity there is too strong, the atmosphere too toxic, and the native life forms too aggressive for any civilized species to survive." "That is correct," Zeth Kara replied, "which makes this situation even more troubling. According to our analysis, the humans come from what we would classify as a death world. They are, by our standards, a death world species themselves." The chamber erupted in worried chatter. Death world species were the nightmare of galactic civilization. They came from planets so harsh that they produced creatures of incredible violence and survival instinct. The Cathara were the perfect example of why such species were too dangerous to contact. Zeth Kara waited for the noise to die down before continuing. "The human ship has ignored all our warning signals. When we transmitted the Cathara protocol to them, explaining that the system is under quarantine, they responded with a message that I will play for you now." The chamber's speakers crackled to life. A female voice spoke in clear, confident tones. Despite the translation software, there was something in the voice that made many council members shift nervously in their seats. "This is Captain Elena Vasquez of the human stellar ship Prometheus. We have received your warning about the Cathara system. We understand that your council considers the inhabitants dangerous and has banned contact with them. We respectfully disagree with this policy. Humanity has a different approach to dealing with difficult situations. We do not abandon people simply because they are hard to understand or dangerous to approach. The Prometheus will proceed to the Cathara system. We suggest you monitor the situation and learn something new about what is possible when someone actually tries to help instead of just writing off entire species as hopeless." The message ended, leaving the chamber in stunned silence. No one had ever spoken to the Galactic Council in such a direct manner. The humans had basically told the most powerful organization in the galaxy that they were wrong, and that they intended to ignore council authority. Councillor Drakesh, whose species had lost an entire expedition to the Cathara centuries ago, slammed his massive fist on his speaking podium. "This is madness. These humans have no idea what they are walking into. The Cathara destroyed our best ships and killed our finest diplomats. They are not misunderstood, they are monsters." "Perhaps," said Councillor Mindalith in her soft musical voice. "But consider this. If the humans truly come from a death world as harsh as the reports suggest, they might actually survive contact with the Cathara. The question is, what happens when 2 death world species meet?" Zeth Kara brought up new data on the main screen. "Our long-range sensors show that the human ship has already entered the Cathara system. They are not broadcasting diplomatic codes or following first contact protocols. Instead, They appear to be heading directly for the planet's surface. The image on the screen switched to a real-time feed from a monitoring station at the edge of the Kythera system. The human ship moved through space with a confidence that worried the watching council members. Most ships approaching a death world would proceed slowly, with weapons ready and shields at maximum power. The Prometheus moved like it owned the space around it. "Look at their approach pattern," observed Counselor Ithara, whose species were master strategists. "They are not coming in as diplomats or researchers. That is the approach of a military vessel preparing for combat operations." Zethkara nodded grimly. "Our analysis agrees. The human ship appears to be equipped for what they call hostile environment operations. They are not coming to study the Kythera or attempt peaceful contact. They are preparing for war. Then we must stop them," declared Counselor Drakish. "If these humans attack the Kythera, it could destabilize the entire quarantine. The Kythera might break out of their system and spread across the galaxy." "With what forces?" asked Counselor Mindalith practically. "Our nearest battle group is 6 days away. The humans will reach the planet in less than 4 hours." The chamber fell quiet as the reality of the situation sank in. They were about to witness something that had never happened before in galactic history. One death world species making contact with another. No one knew what would happen, but everyone understood that the results could change everything. Captain Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of the Prometheus, watching the blue-green planet grow larger on the main screen. Her crew worked quietly at their stations, checking weapon systems and preparing for what was to come. They had been traveling for 6 months to reach this place, following signals that suggested an intelligent species in desperate need of help. The communications officer looked up from his station. "Captain, we're receiving another transmission from the Galactic Council. They're demanding that we retreat and submit to their authority." Elena smiled grimly. "Tell them we appreciate their concern, but humanity has never been very good at following other people's rules, especially when those rules involve abandoning people who need help." She turned to her tactical officer. "Status report, Commander Chen." "All systems ready, Captain." "The orbital scans confirm what we suspected. The planet's surface is experiencing massive geological instability. The native population is under severe threat from both natural disasters and predatory wildlife. If we don't act soon, we're looking at potential extinction of the entire species." Elena nodded. "Then we do what humans do best. We go down there and fix the problem." She looked around at her crew, seeing the same determination in their eyes that had driven humanity to survive on one of the galaxy's most dangerous worlds. "Prepare for deployment. It's time to show the galaxy what happens when someone actually tries to help instead of just talking about it." The dropships fell through Kythera Prime's thick atmosphere like metal meteors. Inside the lead craft, Lieutenant Commander Sarah Chen checked her weapon one final time and looked at the 12 Marines under her command. Each soldier wore armor designed for the worst conditions Earth could produce, but even their advanced suits struggled with the alien world's toxic air and crushing gravity. "Remember, people," Chen said into her comm system, "we're not here to make friends, we're here to clear a path. The Kythera have been fighting these predators for months without success. Our job is to show them that some problems just need the right kind of force applied in the right way." Through the dropship's small windows, the Marines could see the landscape below. Kythera Prime looked like what might happen if Earth's worst disasters all occurred at the same time. Massive volcanoes spewed lava into a sky already darkened by ash clouds. The ground split apart in deep canyons that glowed with underground fires. In the distance, creatures the size of buildings moved across the wasteland, hunting anything that moved. The dropship touched down on a rocky plateau overlooking a Kythera settlement. Chen was the first to step outside, and even through her environmental suit she could feel the planet trying to kill her. The gravity pulled at her body with 3 times the force she was used to. The air was so thick with sulfur and ash that it would have dissolved her lungs in seconds without protection. "Welcome to paradise," muttered Sergeant Torres, checking his plasma rifle's power levels. From their position on the plateau, the Marines could see the Kythera settlement below. The buildings were built like fortresses, with thick walls and narrow windows designed to keep out the world's hostile environment. But even their strong defenses were not enough to stop what was coming toward them. A pack of creatures the humans had designated bone crushers was moving across the valley floor toward the settlement. Each beast stood 20 feet tall and moved on 6 legs that ended in claws capable of tearing through solid rock. Their hides were thick enough to stop most weapons, and their massive jaws could bite through steel. The Galactic Council's reports had described them as the perfect predator, impossible to kill and impossible to reason with. Chen watched through her scope as Cathara warriors rushed to defend their homes. The aliens were impressive fighters, standing 8 feet tall with 4 powerful arms that could wield multiple weapons at once. They moved with the grace of born predators and fought with the desperation of a species that had learned to survive in hell. But even their skill and courage were not enough against the bone crushers. "Ma'am," called Private Martinez from the communications station. "I'm picking up Cathara radio chatter. It sounds like they're calling for all warriors to fall back to the inner defenses. They're going to abandon the outer settlement." Chen looked through her scope again. In the outer settlement, she could see Cathara civilians, families with young ones who moved too slowly to reach safety in time. The warriors were making the hard choice that every soldier understood. Save who you can and let the rest go. "Not today," Chen said quietly. She switched to the command frequency. "All units, this is Reaper Leader. We have civilians in danger and hostiles approaching. Rules of engagement are simple. Anything with more teeth than common sense gets turned into smoking holes in the ground. Move out." The Marines spread out across the plateau and began their descent toward the valley floor. They moved in perfect coordination, using hand signals and shared tactical data to maintain formation, while navigating the treacherous terrain. Years of training on Earth's most dangerous environments had prepared them for exactly this kind of operation. The first bone crusher died before it knew the humans were there. Torres lined up his shot from 300 meters away and put a plasma bolt through the creature's skull. The massive predator dropped like a falling mountain, its death roar echoing across the valley. The pack turned toward this new threat, and Chen got her first close look at what had been terrorizing the Kithra for months. The creatures were even more impressive up close. Living tanks covered in bone plates and powered by muscles that could crush steel. They charged toward the human position with the confidence of apex predators that had never met anything they could not kill. They were about to learn something new about the universe. Chen's rifle spoke twice, and 2 more bone crushers crashed to the ground. Around her, the other Marines opened fire with weapons designed to stop the most dangerous creatures Earth could produce. Plasma bolts and explosive rounds tore through hide that had shrugged off Cathara weapons. The aliens' perfect predators were not quite perfect enough, but the bone crushers were smart as well as deadly. The surviving members of the pack split up, using the rocky terrain for cover while they tried to flank the human position. Chen smiled grimly behind her helmet visor. These creatures had learned to hunt Cathara warriors, but they had no experience with human military tactics. "Martinez Rodriguez, take the left flank. Torres Kim, you have the right. I want crossfire positions established in 30 seconds. Anything that moves in that valley dies." The Marines moved like parts of a single organism, each soldier knowing exactly where the others would be and what they would do. It was the kind of coordination that came from training together in environments where a single mistake meant death for the entire team. From his hiding place in the rocks above the settlement, War Chief Grextor watched the battle with growing amazement. He had led Cathara warriors for 40 seasons and had fought against bone crushers more times than he could count. He knew their strength, their speed, and their cunning. He also knew that stopping a full pack attack was supposed to be impossible. The small aliens fighting in the valley below were doing the impossible with what looked like casual efficiency. They moved too slowly to be great warriors. The heavy gravity that barely slowed a Cathara seemed to burden them significantly. They were also smaller than any predator species Grextor had ever seen. But they fought with a precision and deadliness that spoke of experience with dangers even greater than bone crushers. One of the pack leaders, a massive creature scarred from dozens of battles, broke through the crossfire and charged directly at the human position. Grextor had seen this beast kill 6 warriors in a single fight. No weapon his people possessed could penetrate its thick skull armor. The human leader stepped forward to meet the charge. Instead of running or calling for help, she braced her weapon and waited until the creature was close enough that its breath would have fogged her helmet visor. Then she fired a single shot that punched through the bone crusher's armor and out the back of its skull. The remaining predators, faced with a threat they could not understand or overcome, did something Grextor had never seen before. They retreated. The perfect killing machines of Cathara Prime turned and fled from creatures half their size. In the sudden silence that followed, Graxtor heard one of the humans speaking into their communication device. The voice was calm and professional, as if killing apex predators was routine work. Reaper leader to Prometheus. Landing zone is secure. We have multiple friendly contacts observing from elevated positions. Request permission to make contact. The response came immediately. Permission granted, Reaper leader. Remember, we're here to help, not to conquer. Show them what humans are really like. Chen removed her helmet, revealing a face that was young but marked by the kind of scars that came from fighting dangerous battles. She looked up toward Graxtor's position and raised one hand in what was clearly a peaceful gesture. My name is Sarah Chen, she called out in carefully practiced Cathara. We are humans. We heard your people needed help with a predator problem. We brought better weapons. Graxtor looked down at the valley floor, where the bodies of creatures that had terrorized his people for months lay smoking in the alien sun. Then he looked at the small female who had killed the pack leader with a single shot. For the first time in his long life as a warrior, Graxtor thought he might have found something more dangerous than the world that had created him. People who were even more determined to survive than the Cathara themselves. The fire crackled between them, casting dancing shadows on the rocky walls of the Cathara shelter. Dr. Rebecca Martinez sat across from War Chief Graxtor, comparing the scars on their arms while sharing a meal that would have poisoned most galactic species. The food was tough, bitter, and loaded with minerals that Earth-based life needed to survive in hostile environments. This one, Graxtor said, pointing to a jagged mark that ran from his shoulder to his elbow, came from a young stone ripper when I was learning to hunt. I thought I was faster than I was. Martinez examined the scar with professional interest. We call that a learning experience. This one, she pointed to a similar mark on her own arm, came from a razorback bear in Alaska. I thought I was smarter than I was. They shared what passed for laughter between their species, a sound that would have terrified most civilized aliens but felt natural to both predators. 3 weeks had passed since the first contact in the valley. The human forward base now occupied a plateau overlooking the main Cathara settlement, and the two species had discovered something that surprised everyone. They understood each other in ways that went deeper than language. Graxtor gestured toward the human equipment that filled the shelter. Seismic monitors beeped steadily, displaying data about the planet's increasingly unstable core. Atmospheric processors hummed as they analyzed the toxic air. Geological survey drones returned regularly with samples from the deepest parts of the world's crust. Your people study our world like warriors study an enemy, Graxtor observed. But not to defeat it. To understand it, Martinez nodded. That's exactly right. Humans learned long ago that you can't beat a dangerous environment by fighting it directly. You have to understand what makes it dangerous, and then find ways to work with those forces instead of against them. She pulled up a holographic display showing Cathara Prime's internal structure. The image rotated slowly, revealing a complex network of magma chambers, fault lines, and unstable mineral deposits that made the planet a geological time bomb. Your world is dying, Martinez said bluntly. The core is cooling too quickly, which is causing the magnetic field to weaken. Without that protection, solar radiation is breaking down your atmosphere, while the internal pressure changes are triggering the earthquakes and volcanic eruptions. Graxtor studied the display with the intensity of a hunter tracking dangerous prey. Despite having no formal scientific training, he understood the implications immediately. How long do we have? At the current rate of decay? Maybe 50 of your years before the atmosphere becomes completely unbreathable. Maybe 100 before the geological activity tears the planet apart entirely. The war chief was quiet for a long moment, staring into the fire. The Galactic Council told us this world was unsavable. They said we should evacuate to one of their colony worlds, but he gestured with all 4 arms toward the toxic landscape outside. We cannot live anywhere else. This world made us what we are. Without it, we are nothing. The Council thinks small, Martinez replied. They look at a problem like this and see an impossible situation. They calculate the resources it would take to fix it, compare that to the cost of evacuation, and choose the cheaper option. But they're missing something important. What is that? Martinez smiled, an expression that showed teeth evolved for tearing meat. They assume that their way of solving problems is the only way. Humans have a different approach. When we find a problem that seems impossible, we don't look for ways around it. We look for ways to make the impossible possible. She activated another display, this one showing detailed plans for massive construction projects. Orbital platforms surrounded the planet like a mechanical ring system. Deep core mining stations extended thousands of kilometers into the planet's interior. Atmospheric processing plants the size of cities dotted the surface. "We can save your world," Martinez said simply. "It won't be easy, and it won't be cheap, and it will require building technology that pushes the limits of what both our species can accomplish. But we can do it." Graxtor stared at the plans with the same expression a drowning man might wear when thrown a rope. "Why would you do this for us? Your people barely know us. We have nothing to offer in return." "That's where you're wrong," Martinez replied. "You have something very valuable to offer. You have experience surviving in conditions that would kill most species. You've developed technologies and techniques for living on a world that actively tries to murder everything on it. That knowledge is exactly what humanity needs." She brought up another display, this one showing images from Earth's colonies, worlds where humans struggled to establish settlements in environments almost as hostile as Cathera Prime. Mining operations in the cores of dead planets, research stations in the crushing depths of gas giant atmospheres, military bases on worlds where the local life forms made bone crushers look like house pets. Humanity is expanding into the galaxy's most dangerous places, Martinez explained. Not because we want to, but because those are the places with the resources we need and the strategic positions we require. We're good at surviving in hostile environments, but we could be better. Learning from the Cathera could help us save human lives on a dozen different worlds. Graxtor leaned back, processing this information. "You want to trade knowledge. Our experience for your technology." "More than that," Martinez said. "We want to work together. Combine human engineering with Cathara survival expertise to create solutions that neither of us could develop alone. Your people have techniques for working in extreme conditions that our engineers have never considered. Our people have tools and materials that could make your techniques even more effective." She stood and walked to the shelter's entrance, looking out over the hostile landscape where human and Cathara work teams labored side by side. In the distance, massive earth-moving machines that combined human design with Cathara metallurgy carved new channels to redirect lava flows away from populated areas. Closer to the base, mixed teams of engineers worked on atmospheric processors that could function in conditions that would destroy conventional equipment. The Galactic Council sees two Deathworld species and assumes we must be enemies, Martinez continued. They think that beings evolved for violence and survival can't possibly cooperate. They don't understand that shared hardship creates bonds stronger than shared comfort ever could. Graxtor joined her at the entrance. "The Council fears us because they think our worlds made us monsters." "They're half right," Martinez admitted. "Our worlds did make us different from them. Harder, more willing to take risks, less willing to accept that problems are unsolvable. But they mistake those traits for primitive savagery because they've never had to develop them themselves." A ground tremor shook the shelter as another earthquake rippled through the planet's crust. Both women automatically adjusted their balance without conscious thought. A reflex developed through lifetimes of living on unstable ground. "The difference between us and them," Martinez said as the shaking subsided, "is that we know the universe is trying to kill us and we refuse to let it succeed. They've forgotten that everything worth having has to be fought for." Captain Vasquez's voice crackled through the communication system. "Dr. Martinez, please report to the command center. We have incoming transmissions from the Galactic Council fleet. They want to discuss our unauthorized activities in the system." Martinez and Graxtor exchanged glances. They both understood what this meant. The easy part of their cooperation was about to end. "Let me guess," Graxtor said dryly. "They want to protect us from the dangerous humans who are actually helping us solve our problems." "Something like that," Martinez replied. "Are your people ready for what comes next? Because the Council isn't going to just let us continue this project without a fight." Graxtor's expression shifted into something that would have sent most predators running for cover. "Dr. Martinez, my people have been fighting for survival since the day we were born. If the Council wants to try stopping us from saving our world, they are welcome to try. They might learn something about what Deathworld species can accomplish when they stop fighting each other and start working together." As they walked toward the command center, Martinez felt a grim satisfaction. The Council had spent centuries keeping Deathworld species isolated, convinced that contact between them would lead to chaos and destruction. They were about to discover they were right, just not in the way they expected. Fleet Admiral Cathos stood on the bridge of the Galactic Council enforcement vessel Harmony's Light, staring at the tactical display with growing disbelief. What he saw there challenged everything he thought he knew about Deathworld species and the nature of civilized behavior. The Cathera system was supposed to contain 1. Quarantined planet populated by savage predators. 2. Dangerous for civilized contact. Instead, his sensors showed a massive construction project that defied both logic and galactic law. Orbital platforms surrounded Cathara Prime like a mechanical ring system, their purpose unclear but their scale undeniable. "Communications officer," Cathos ordered, his crystalline voice echoing with authority. "Patch me through to the human vessel. I want to speak with their commander immediately." The main screen flickered and Captain Elena Vasquez appeared. She stood in what was clearly a military command center, surrounded by displays showing construction progress, geological data, and tactical information. Her bearing was professional but not deferential. She faced the most powerful military leader in the galaxy as an equal, rather than a subordinate. "Admiral Cathos," Vasquez said calmly, "I've been expecting your call. I assume you're here to discuss our activities in the Cathera system." "I am here to end them," Cathos replied firmly. "Captain, you and your people are in violation of Galactic Council Directive 847, which prohibits unauthorized contact with quarantined species. You will cease all operations immediately and surrender your vessel for inspection." Vasquez's expression didn't change, but something in her eyes suggested that Cathos had just made a serious mistake. "Admiral, with respect, humanity is not a member of your Galactic Council. Your directives carry no legal authority over our actions. Furthermore, we are not engaged in unauthorized contact with a quarantined species. We are providing humanitarian assistance to allies who requested our help." "Allies?" Cathos struggled to process this concept. "Captain, the Cathera are a hostile Deathworld species. They cannot be allies in any meaningful sense. They are barely civilized predators whose only response to outside contact is violence." "That's interesting," Vasquez replied, "because for the past month, they've been working alongside my people to build the largest engineering project in this sector of the galaxy. Would you like to see what we've accomplished together?" Before Cathos could respond, the display changed to show real-time footage from the planet's surface. Human and Cathera work teams operated massive drilling platforms that extended deep into the planet's core. The technology was unlike anything the Council had seen, equipment designed to function in conditions that would destroy conventional machinery. "What you're looking at," Vasquez explained, "is a planetary-scale geological stabilization project. The Cathera homeworld was dying, core instability leading to atmospheric breakdown and increasing seismic activity. Your Council's response was to write off the entire species as a lost cause. Our response was to fix the problem." Cathos studied the images with growing alarm. The scale of the operation was staggering, but what disturbed him more was the level of cooperation between the two species. Humans and Cathara worked side by side with an efficiency that suggested weeks or months of coordination. "Captain," Cathos said carefully, "even if your intentions are peaceful, you must understand the danger you're creating. Deathworld species are unpredictable and violent. Any alliance between them poses a threat to galactic stability." Vasquez's smile was sharp enough to cut metal. "Admiral, you're absolutely right. An alliance between Deathworld species is extremely dangerous to anyone who tries to stop us from protecting each other." The tactical display suddenly lit up with new contacts. Cathera vessels emerged from behind the planet's moons, their hulls covered in weapon systems that combined alien design with human tactical doctrine. The ships moved with a precision that spoke of shared training and coordinated planning. "What you're seeing," Vasquez continued as Cathos watched his tactical advantage disappear, "is the result of what happens when you give a species that has been fighting for survival their entire existence access to better tools and strategic coordination. The Cathera have been building ships designed to survive in their system's harsh conditions for centuries. We just helped them optimize those designs for different types of warfare." Cathos activated his own weapon systems, but hesitated. The Council fleet was designed to fight conventional battles against civilized opponents who followed established rules of engagement. The ships surrounding him had been built by species that understood warfare as a matter of life and death, rather than political maneuvering. "Admiral," came a voice from behind him. His tactical officer, Commander Yithsen, was studying the sensor readings with obvious concern. Their weapon signatures don't match anything in our databases. The humans appear to be using some form of plasma-based directed energy system, while the Kythera vessels are equipped with kinetic weapons that use gravitational acceleration to achieve impact velocities we've never recorded before. Kathos felt a chill run through his crystalline structure. Are you telling me that in the space of 1 month these species have developed entirely new weapons technologies? No, sir, Yithsen replied. I'm telling you they've combined existing technologies in ways we never considered possible. The human plasma systems are designed for use in extreme electromagnetic environments, while the Kythera kinetic weapons were originally developed for asteroid mining in high-gravity conditions. Together, they've created weapons platforms that are optimized for fighting in environments that would disable our equipment. On the main screen, Captain Vasquez continued speaking as if she were discussing routine maintenance, rather than a standoff between battle fleets. Admiral, I want to be very clear about something. We're not here to fight you. We're here to save a species that your council abandoned. But if you try to stop us from completing that mission, you're going to discover why Deathworld species have such a reputation for being dangerous. Kathos looked around his Bridget officers who had spent their careers maintaining galactic peace through diplomatic pressure and the implied threat of superior technology. None of them had ever faced opponents who approached warfare as a survival necessity, rather than a political tool. Captain Vasquez, Kathos said slowly, you're asking me to ignore direct orders from the Galactic Council and allow you to continue an operation that violates fundamental principles of interspecies contact. No, Vasquez replied. I'm asking you to watch and learn. Your council has spent centuries convinced that Deathworld species are too dangerous to contact and too primitive to contribute anything meaningful to galactic civilization. We're about to prove that both assumptions are completely wrong. She gestured toward something off-screen, and the display switched to show the orbital platforms in greater detail. The structures were enormous, each one larger than most space stations, and they hummed with energy patterns that the Council's sensors couldn't fully analyze. Those platforms, Vasquez explained, are gravitational field generators. They're designed to stabilize Kythera Prime's core by creating artificial tidal forces that will redistribute the internal pressures, causing the geological instability. The technology combines human understanding of gravitational physics with Kythera knowledge of high-pressure engineering. Neither species could have built them alone. Kathos stared at the platforms with a mixture of awe and terror. The Council's best scientists had declared planetary-scale gravitational manipulation to be theoretically impossible. The energy requirements alone would exceed the output of most star systems. Where are you getting the power for something like this? He asked despite himself. That's the beautiful part, Vasquez replied. We're not generating the power, we're redirecting it. Kythera Prime's core instability creates massive amounts of energy that currently goes to waste, causing earthquakes and volcanic eruptions. The platforms capture that energy and redirect it back into the core in a controlled manner. We're essentially teaching the planet to heal itself. Commander Yithsen leaned toward Kathos and whispered urgently, Sir, if this technology works, it could revolutionize how we approach planetary engineering. Every death world in the galaxy could potentially be made habitable. Kathos felt the foundations of his worldview beginning to crack. The Galactic Council's entire approach to interspecies relations was based on the assumption that civilized species were inherently more capable than primitive ones. If two Deathworld species could accomplish something that the Council's best scientists had deemed impossible, Captain, Kathos said carefully, I need to understand something. What do you expect to happen if this project succeeds? Do you think the rest of the galaxy will simply accept an alliance between armed Deathworld species? Vasquez's expression grew serious. Admiral, the rest of the galaxy is going to have to accept that their assumptions about Deathworld species were wrong. We're not primitive savages who can only respond to problems with violence. We're experienced survivors who know how to find solutions that others give up on. The universe is full of challenges that civilized species consider impossible. Hostile environments, dangerous life forms, unstable stellar phenomena. 6 months later, the Galactic Council chambers on Nexus Prime buzzed with an energy that had been absent for decades. Representatives from across the galaxy filled the seats, all gathered to witness something unprecedented. the first joint address by the Human Kythera Alliance to the galactic community. Ambassador Elena Vasquez walked to the central platform, no longer wearing the uniform of a starship captain, but the formal diplomatic attire of humanity's first galactic ambassador. Beside her walked War Chief Graxtor, his forearms carrying data tablets that contained information that would reshape how the galaxy understood the massive viewing. Screens around the chamber displayed real-time images from Kythera Prime, where once a dying world had struggled against geological collapse. Now a stable planet thrived under azure skies. The orbital platforms that had seemed so threatening to Admiral Cathos now hummed quietly, maintaining the gravitational fields that kept the world's core stable and its atmosphere breathable. Honored representatives, Vasquez began, her words translated into hundreds of languages simultaneously. 6 months ago, the Galactic Council declared the Kythera homeworld unsavable, and its people too dangerous for civilized contact. Today I stand before you as proof that both assessments were incorrect. She gestured toward the images of the restored planet. Kythera Prime is not only saved, it has become the first successfully restored death world in galactic history. The techniques we developed here are already being applied to 3 other worlds that your scientists had written off as hopeless cases. Counselor Drakesh, who had argued most strongly for maintaining the quarantine, stood to address the assembly. Ambassador Vasquez, while we acknowledge the technical achievement your species have accomplished, the fundamental question remains: what assurance can you give us that an alliance between Deathworld species will not become a threat to galactic peace? Graxtor stepped forward to answer. His voice, once heard only in the war cries of battle, now carried the weight of diplomatic authority. Counselor, your question reveals a fundamental misunderstanding of what Deathworld species represent. You fear us because you assume that beings evolved for violence must be inherently aggressive toward others. But consider this: species that have spent their entire evolutionary history fighting for survival understand the value of life better than those who have never faced real danger. He activated a display, showing casualty statistics from the Kythera system operation. In 6 months of intensive cooperation between our species, we have had 0 fatalities from interpersonal conflict. 0. Our people, who you consider savage predators, have worked alongside humans in conditions that would kill most galactic citizens, and we have treated each other with the respect that comes from shared hardship. Counselor Mindalith leaned forward in her seat. But what of your military capabilities? Our observations show that both species have developed weapons technologies far beyond anything previously recorded. Vasquez smiled grimly. Counselor, you're absolutely right. When you combine human engineering with Kythera metallurgy and survival expertise, you get weapons that are far more effective than anything either species could build alone. But here's what you're missing. We didn't build those weapons to threaten you. We built them to protect each other. She brought up tactical displays showing the defensive grid that now protected both Earth and Kythera Prime. Every death world in the galaxy faces the same basic challenge: hostile environments that produce hostile life forms. The predators that threaten the Kythera are not unique. Similar creatures exist on dozens of worlds that your council has abandoned. Our alliance gives us the tools to protect not just our own worlds, but any world where people are fighting impossible odds for survival. Ambassador Zeth Kara, who had first brought news of humanity's arrival to the council, spoke up from her section. Ambassador Vasquez, are you suggesting that the Human Kythera Alliance intends to expand its operations to other quarantined worlds? That's exactly what I'm suggesting, Vasquez replied. The galaxy is full of species that your council has written off as too dangerous, too primitive, or too difficult to help. We intend to prove that no one is beyond help if you're willing to understand their situation and work with their strengths instead of against their nature. The chamber erupted in concerned chatter as the implications of this statement sank in. The Galactic Council's authority rested largely on their role as the sole arbiters of interspecies contact and technological development. An alliance that operated outside that authority and actively worked to contact quarantined species represented a fundamental challenge to the established order. Admiral Cathos, who had observed the entire Kythera operation and returned to Nexus Prime with detailed reports, stood to address the assembly. Honored representatives, I have seen firsthand what these species can accomplish when they work together. I have also seen how they approach problems that we consider impossible. I believe we face a choice. We can try to maintain the old system of quarantines and limited contact, or we can learn from what the Human Cathara Alliance has achieved. He activated his own display, showing footage from the successful planetary restoration. The technology they developed doesn't just work on Cathara Prime. Our scientists have confirmed that similar techniques could be applied to restore dozens of worlds we've classified as uninhabitable. The economic and strategic implications are staggering. Counselor Vex Talon's crystalline form shimmered with agitation. Admiral, you're asking us to abandon fundamental principles of galactic law and order. If we allow Deathworld species to operate outside Council authority, where does it end? Graxtor answered before the Admiral could respond. It ends with a galaxy where no one is abandoned to die simply because they're difficult to understand or dangerous to approach. It ends with alliances based on mutual respect and shared capability rather than fear and prejudice. He gestured toward the images of his restored homeworld. 6 months ago, my people were facing extinction. Your council's response was to offer us evacuation to colony worlds where we would slowly lose everything that made us who we are. The humans offered us something different. The tools and knowledge to save ourselves while remaining ourselves. Vasquez stepped forward again. The Galactic Council has spent centuries trying to maintain peace through control and isolation. You quarantine dangerous species, limit technological development, and maintain stability through careful management of contact between civilizations. That approach has worked well for you, but it has failed millions of people on worlds you've written off as hopeless cases. She brought up a star map showing the locations of quarantined systems throughout the galaxy. Red markers indicated worlds where intelligent species struggled against hostile environments, while yellow markers showed successful interventions by the Human Cathara Alliance. In the past 6 months, we've made contact with species on 17 different worlds. We've provided technological assistance, shared survival techniques, and established trade relationships based on mutual benefit rather than charitable dependence. Every one of these species has something valuable to contribute to galactic civilization. Knowledge, resources, or capabilities that come from adapting to environments that would challenge even the most advanced civilizations. Counselor Mindalith studied the star map with obvious interest. What do you want from the Galactic Council, Ambassador? We want recognition, Vasquez replied simply. Recognition that Deathworld species are not primitive savages to be quarantined or pitied. We want acknowledgement that the galaxy's most dangerous worlds often produce its most capable survivors, and we want the Council to stop interfering with our efforts to help people who need help. She paused, looking around the chamber at representatives who were struggling to process the fundamental shift in galactic dynamics they were witnessing. The Human Cathara Alliance is not going away, Vasquez continued. Every month we make contact with new species that your Council has abandoned. Every month we prove that problems you consider impossible can be solved with the right combination of determination, creativity, and willingness to take risks. You can choose to work with us, learn from us, and benefit from what we accomplish, or you can try to stop us and discover just how effectively Deathworld species can protect each other when necessary. The chamber fell silent as the weight of her words sank in. The galaxy's political order, unchanged for centuries, was facing its first serious challenge. The question was no longer whether Deathworld species could be trusted with advanced technology and autonomy. They had already proven their capabilities. Beyond any reasonable doubt, the question now was whether the rest of the galaxy was wise enough to adapt to a new reality where the most dangerous worlds produce the most effective problem solvers, and where alliances based on shared hardship proved stronger than those based on shared comfort. As the Council prepared to vote on formal recognition of the Human Cathara Alliance, images from the restored Cathara Prime continued to play on the chamber's screens. Children of both species played together in parks built on land that had once been uninhabitable wasteland. Engineers collaborated on projects that pushed the boundaries of what was considered possible.